Hello, this weekend is the 15th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Our readings are Isaiah chapter 55, verses 10 and 11. Our psalm is Psalm 65. Our second reading is Romans chapter 8, verses 18 to 23. And our gospel is Matthew chapter 13, verses 1 to 23. When I was a teenager, I knew two farmers, an old farmer and a less old farmer. They were tomato farmers, we'll say. And the less old tomato farmer was very meticulous about his growing methods. He would start with the very best seeds he could find, and he would start the plants inside. And when the seedlings got big enough, he would move them into big pots. He used 5-gallon buckets mostly, and he would have one plant per pot. He would put all the pots outside, scattered around his farm. And he would baby those plants, and he'd talk to them. He'd sing to them too, I would imagine. And he would water them and nurture them. He would move the pots around to different spots, so the plants would get more light or less light, depending on the weather. And he would spend his time painstakingly developing those plants to produce the very best tomatoes in the county. I mean, tomatoes like that you never saw. We sold them all over. I even brought some up to Baltimore, Maryland one year, and everyone just raved about how these were the very best tomatoes that they had ever had. And they were the best. The very highest quality product. Now the old farmer, he used to scoff at the less old farmer. The old farmer called the young farmer the bucket-mater farmer. The old farmer had a different farming technique. The old farmer would plant a patch of tomatoes, and it wouldn't take him hardly any time. He'd hoe out a few rows, throw in some seeds, cover them up, and move on to the next patch. He'd plant a patch here and a patch there, one on the sunny side of the mountain, one on the shady side of the mountain. Rocky soil, good soil, sandy soil, clay soil, it didn't matter. You see, he was going for quantity over quality. And he didn't come back and water and fuss over his plants. He used to say, "Son, they're maters. If the good Lord gives us rain, they're going to grow." And he was right most of the time. He grew more maters than anybody in the county. Some of his were just as good as the young farmer. They were just as good as the bucket maters. But not all of them. But he wasn't worried about having the very best mater that a mater could be. He was trying to grow as many tomatoes as he could. And he planted maters all over. He trusted God to sort out what grew and what didn't. It reminds me of the parable in our gospel today. The old farmer has the same sowing style as the sower in the parable. Now Jesus uses this parable to show us how we should prepare ourselves, how we should prepare our soil to be good soil. Soil where we can hear God's word and understand it, so we can grow strong in our faith and bear much fruit. We can't let ourselves be thorny soil with worldly anxiety and the love of riches choking God's word out of our lives. And we can't be like rocky soil, providing no depth within our soul for God's word to take root. And we can't be willy-nilly on the path, letting the evil one steal away what is sown in our hearts. We need to be the rich soil. We need to hear and understand the word. Bear much fruit, and from that fruit spread the seeds of the gospel far and wide, on all types of soil. Because I think this parable is also talking about how we are to sow. Our tendency, when we read this parable, is to think about nurturing our soil to be receptive to God's leading. But then we also start to think that, in the logical progression of the parable, it would be for the sower next time not to waste seed on the bad soil, to concentrate his efforts on the good soil, to nurture and develop that soil that is already good, to grow the best fruit that it can grow. Like my younger farmer friend used to do with his bucket maters. And we want to do the same thing. We start nurturing our own soil, and seeds grow there, and we keep right on babying our own soil. And when we do branch out, we don't branch far. We form a small prayer group, or we join one. We feed ourselves on the Word, and we grow in our spirituality. And the fruit we grow is shared with our little group, and it nurtures them, and it helps their soul, and it helps their soil. And it is beautiful, but it is also small and easy. It is in our nature to congregate with those who are like us, to take our pot of good soil and place it with the other pots of good soil. And we all just share the fruit that we cultivate there in our good soil. We stay in our comfort zone, preaching to the choir, playing to our bass. We think, I have my small group. I don't want to go to that other group because so-and-so is there and I don't like her politics. Or we think, I don't want to attend that conference on personal prayer because that leader's too conservative, or he's too liberal, or whatever. Or we say, we need to fix the issues we have internally, right here in this parish, before we worry about the problems of outsiders, before we worry about bringing in new people, we need to get right here. So we click together in little like-minded groups, nurturing only each other's soil. Like the young farmer, we grow a few really good bucket maters. But that's not the place that Jesus goes with this parable. The image of the sower is that he is sowing seeds far and wide, indiscriminately throwing seeds on good soil and bad, trying to grow fruit even in places where he knows it won't work, but sowing, always sowing. Ours is not to question the viability of the soil before we sow the seed. Our job is to sow the seed. I want to close with one more image. We've all been walking down a city sidewalk and come upon a weed, growing up through the cracks, a weed that has no business being there. It's been walked on, trampled over, probably sprayed with weed killer, maybe even semi-ripped out of there. But the weed persists. Every day it gets stronger, taller, continuing to grow in a place where it should not be able to grow at all. And one day, when it's tall enough and strong enough, it bursts open into beautiful yellow petals, a magnificent dandelion in the sidewalk, gloriously shining for all the world to see. And sometimes people are like that too. And it's all because a seed, a little kernel of truth, a little piece of Christ's kingdom, a small ray of Christ's light, indiscriminately falls on a place or a person where it seems impossible to grow, a place or a person where people say no flower could ever grow there. But the thing is, Jesus, the greatest of all green thumbs, can grow flowers anywhere. So don't hoard your light. Don't keep all your seeds only in your good soil. Don't withhold Christ's kingdom from the world. Don't grow your bucket maters at the expense of sidewalk dandelions. Sow seeds everywhere and trust the good Lord to provide the rain and to sort it out.